So good morning, everyone. I think you've heard a lot about supervision. You've heard a lot about the research process. And you will see that my presentation will actually link very nicely to Dr. Given's, Matunta's presentation as well. But I will be looking at it from a slightly different perspective, although you will see some elements will be reproduced. It's because we need to work together. And as Given has said, it is a marriage. First of all, you need to realize that doing a master's or a PhD study is a journey. All right. It's not only about a relationship. And the supervisor walked this journey already. So we are quite aware of all the issues that can come up and all the possible pitfalls that you need to be aware of. So we can actually guide you and say, be careful, look at this, try and avoid this. So please listen, we come with kind of wisdom and we would like to help you. But this journey, guys, for you as a student, I would like to compare it not to a marriage specifically, but to the 7 dwarfs. Okay, because in the beginning, you are droopy and bashful. You're excited. You want to take on this journey. In the middle, you kind of feel sick, you feel sleepy, you feel grumpy, you don't want to continue, it's too much, or you just want to get this over with. But then at the end, when they call you doc or master, you are very happy. Okay, and that is the 7 dwarfs. That basically summarized the journey for you. Now, each supervisor will look at the student and say, okay, we don't look at what you look like on the outside. We look at this, your mind. So what are you bringing to this relationship? And as you can see, we as a supervisor, we have to deal with a super duper ego. Can you see? And then at the end of the brain on that side, you can see your interest in publish. And in the middle is kind of reading, working, So that is what you bring, and very often we have to work with what you bring, and each one is unique. So therefore, it's very important that we actually start chatting with you, we get to know you, etc. Now, very importantly, in the beginning of the journey, you need a supervisor, because a supervisor can help you to actually continue the journey and ensure that you come to the end of your journey. But it can take different routes. For example, you might have one main supervisor allocated to you. You can have Batman and Robin, or the main supervisor and a co-supervisor that can help you. And then you can also have the Fantastic Four, the cohort supervision process that can help you. Each of these different methods can actually help you to improve your academic rigor. So, for example, you must always remember that you will have one main supervisor allocated to you. But if we ask you to become part of a cohort, it means that there's a different number of students coming together and meeting with different supervisors. So now you're not only networking with each other, but you're also learning from different perspectives. So if those opportunities come your way, I would like you to consider it, because you can actually develop from that whole process. Now, very importantly, guys, and we know this as supervisors, for you, your dissertation on your thesis is everything. Am I right? You live it, you breathe it, you eat it, you sleep it, and you want feedback just like that. Unfortunately, for the supervisor, there's only that little portion, that's you. The other part is all the other things that we are involved in. And that's often where some conflict arises. Because you want the supervisor to just focus on your thesis, which is not always possible. So just be aware of the different focus areas in terms of a supervisor and a student. Now, when you meet with your supervisor, it's often about meeting with a mind, meeting with a person that's higher than yourself, meeting with a professor or a doctor or whatever, and you can actually think it's quite challenging. Am I right? And kind of feeling inferior. And with this little cartoon, you can see when the guy tried to talk, he said, and you can see he's trying to struggle to bring in all the things that Dr. Ruffin said. And then in his mind, you can see, all the negative self-talking coming in. So yeah, no, this supervisor can see through me. I really haven't prepared for this, etc. But what is really happening? Let's see what the professor is thinking. He says, yes, I can see, interesting, acknowledging. But then as well, he's thinking of playing squash with another professor. He might think I need to pick up my dry cleaning. And what is this guy's name again? Especially if you've got like 6, 10, 15 students that you're trying to supervise. You can see, so there's different dynamics happening in that relationship. So be aware of that when you sit down and meet with your supervisor. Now you will see that a lot that I'm going to go through now is linked to what Dr. Mintinta is saying. So please bear with me. There's also a handout given to you that actually explains these roles and responsibilities of a supervisor and a student clearly. So please ensure that you read that as well. So in the beginning, once again, what you need to do also applies to the supervisor, because the supervisor also needs to become familiar with the rules, regulations, procedures. But very importantly, a supervisor needs to declare any personal or conflict of interest. So it is sometimes not advisable that if a student is your mother, that she is supervising her child, okay, or husband supervising his wife, because that's conflict of interest. So just be aware that if you select a supervisor, to try and avoid these kind of situations. A supervisor also needs to assess your capabilities in the beginning. So you will see when we meet up with you, we'll start talking. We will ask you, okay, why are you focusing on that specific topic? And with your first draft, if you start writing your proposal, your supervisor might say, I think I need to refer you to Dr. Mutinta. And it's done for a reason, because a supervisor is not only there to supervise you, but also to develop you on academic level as well as a professional level. So if we suggest that you go for extra English writing lessons or attend a workshop on research methodology, see it as development. Don't see it as a negative thing that we are trying to be funny, etc. All right. Then we're also there to assist you in writing your proposal, finding a topic, and with the ethical clearance. But once again, guys, we're not there to write it for you. It is up to you to actually do that. Financial support, and we will be hearing a bit about funding, etc. It's not the supervisor's role to look for funding for you. It is your responsibility. And guys, I want to really say it clearly this morning, is please get funding. The reason for that is you will need to use an editor. You will need to use a statistician. You will need to bind your dissertations and theses, and that is quite costly. So think about getting the necessary funding so it doesn't delay the process. Once again, the research agreement. That research agreement, you need to stipulate when will you meet, when can you expect feedback. So it's very important that you actually get that done very early in this relationship. You also need to have a specific plan as well as a meeting schedule, because that will ensure that the process can be minuted, that you can have records of it, and that there's no future issue with this relationship. Now, during the process, a supervisor needs to mentor you, guide you, help you, support you, be accessible to you, encourage you, especially to look at writing articles, because that is very important as your personal development. Because, guys, remember that if you do research, it is about sharing that with the world. You want to add value. You want to give back to the community. So the only way to do that is to start writing it, and not only having it in your thesis or your dissertation. The supervisor also needs to give reports based on this supervision process. So there we will do it, normally we do it every 6 months, where we will say you've done your proposal, you have defended your proposal, you're busy with your ethical clearance now, or no progress was made for the first 6 months. Okay. So please remember that progress are measured. And if there's any issues that comes up during the process, that you actually communicate that with your supervisor. When your supervisor is not there for you, maybe they need to attend a conference, or they need to go on leave, or go for training themselves, they need to allocate somebody that can stand in for them. So if you get an email to say, Professor Given, or Professor Dr. Matinta, will be looking after you for this month. Don't think that your supervisor has now forgotten about you or don't like you anymore and want to get rid of you. It might just be because they cannot give you the attention that you require. And then the supervisor also need to help you to actually finalize the chapter writing. At the final stages, the supervisor needs to endorse if this dissertation or thesis can go for examination. Once again, the supervisor can say, I don't think it's ready, but he or she cannot stand in your way if you feel that you want to send it for examination anyway. All right. We had incidences of this, but once again, it seriously impacts on you if you don't get the acceptance of your supervisor. The processes and timelines are very important, as well as recommending external examiners, because your supervisor will be part of that. Your supervisor will need to tell you that it can take 3 to 4 months to get examiners to examine your thesis, all right? So don't expect that you can get feedback within a month, but they need to explain that to you so that you understand. And then coming back to the draft writing, supervisors are not there, as Dr. Matinta said, to actually help you with grammar and spelling, etc. We are there to look at your research. We are there to look at the academic rigor of the process, of the format, etc., etc. And then the final stages will be where a supervisor will write a report about this whole relationship, but we won't evaluate you specifically. It's to give conclusions to the specific relationship. We will also help you to do the final changes when examiners' reports come back to say you need to change X, Y, Z. We will help you to do that as well. And then we will be talking about joint publication, about intellectual rights, which was covered already, and then about education and career options as well. Remember, guys, that if you do your PhD, we have part-time positions available for you. So if it's advertised and you're a PhD student or you have finished your studies, you need to look at those opportunities, especially if you want to go in academic direction. But obviously that's not the only way for you to actually move forward. You can look at possibly starting your own business, like entrepreneurship, for example. So, but once again, the publication and getting your message out and showing your research contribution is very important. Now, some of you, especially the people that I'm supervising, I'm very keen on co-supervision, okay? And the reason for this is mainly because you get another perspective on this journey that you've undertaken. So it's not only one mind looking at your work, but it's another person. So that can actually help you to grow and develop as well. A co-supervisor is also used when you have nominated an external person to be your supervisor. So the co-supervisor will be a person in the university which will help you ensure that you meet the regulations and procedures of the university, and all the administrative procedures are followed. Furthermore, also help that if the supervisor is going to a conference, the main supervisor, that he or she can stand in and the supervision process can continue. The co-supervisor might also want to participate in meetings and will sit in when you guys meet, and once again participate in assessment, talking about anything that's maybe in conflict, because If you are specialized or you are expert, say, in entrepreneurship, for example, but your main supervisor might only be focused on management, you get two different viewpoints, but it's up to the main supervisor and supervisor to talk about how they will get this message across so that you can actually take both of these elements and work it into your thesis or dissertation. And then a co-supervisor will also contribute to the main supervisor report. And then it also helps to actually empower new supervisors, people that has just graduated. So it gives a platform to them to actually learn about the process, and they also will work under the wing of a main supervisor, and they will also help and share in the process. I've mentioned this already, you will always have one main person that will ultimately be responsible and accountable for you. Now guys, in any relationship, and that is a marriage, that is an academia, anything like that, there might be problems along the way. So from your side, you might have specific problems with your supervisor. He might not be honest enough for you. He might not be as enthusiastic or interested as you, as I mentioned, the two focus areas where they only focus on a small bit and you want them to focus on it every day, sleep and eat your dissertation with you. They might be uncontactable. You need to meet them now. But they say, sorry, I'm in a meeting. Or you need to meet them before the end of the week and they say, sorry, I'm not available. Then you might feel that, you cannot reach them. But there are other methods of actually contacting your supervisor, like email, cell phone, etc., etc. Never be cut off, but you don't need to see them face to face to actually know that they are there for you. There's other means and methods as well. And then some take a long time to give feedback. All right, your agreement might say 2 weeks, but you only get feedback in 6 weeks. Okay, and it kind of get to you. But if that happens, you need to sit down with your supervisor and you need to have an open heart-to-heart discussion and say, if you really struggle to give me feedback in 2 weeks, which time is actually the best time to expect feedback? Because if it all depends on the academic load, for example, in June, they're all marking exam scripts. So I think your dissertation is really put aside for now, because that's the focus area. So you need to know when to expect feedback and when not to expect feedback. But I saw some heads when I said, it takes a long time. But please bear with them. And also the quality of feedback is very important. If you feel that you don't get the quality that you're looking for, if they only added a say focusing on your referencing, for example, or highlighting grammar, which is not their duty really, and they didn't give you the feedback that you need to tell them, please, I need something else to work with. And from a supervisor perspective, we also have frustrations with students. They might be lacking enthusiasm. Like I said, it can take them 6 months and then they haven't even written anything yet. So you're asking yourself, now what is wrong? They might be overly dependent, like Dr. Matinta said, that parasite mentality. Okay, they want to meet with you starting this chapter. Okay, what must be in this chapter? Give me the headings. Once you get that, then what do? You can't chase the student away, but you need to realize you need to do it on your own. You need to try it yourself first, and then you go to your supervisor. Then don't follow advice. You give them detailed feedback, and then when it comes back, it's exactly the same. So what do? You really get frustrated with that. Oversensitive to criticism, you get that as well, especially high achievers, They want to know they're doing a great job every time they meet with you. And sometimes you need to tell them, you are missing the point. Your chapter is not at the standard that it should be. And that can actually be taken personally, but you shouldn't see it as personal. You should see it as your own development and your journey towards success. And then finally, a lack of commitment, once again linked to the lack of enthusiasm. And as my cartoon is saying there, you know, the supervisor's been reading and reading and reading and reading, and it's still not there, and the student is stressed out. So, but think about, what are you giving your supervisor at the end of the day? Can you be proud of that piece of work that your supervisor is going to read or not? And then some potential problems as well. This supervisor asked the student about the last draft. Now the supervisor is saying it is too short, and the student is saying, but you said it was too long and now I've cut it. And then the supervisor is saying, well, my rule is to only read the second and the last draft. So there you know already there's the issue there. Okay. And the student will say, have you even read it? And you can pick it up immediately. If you hear your supervisors giving your feedback, you can already get a sense. No, this was a rush job or whatever. But you need to be open and frank to share that with your supervisor. You are working together and you are on a journey. Okay, some basic problems that you need to be aware of: lack of communication, mismatch of expectations, even personality clashes can occur, and there can be competing pressures. You need to be aware of these things so that you can identify it in your relationship and try and overcome it. If it doesn't work, guys, you need to really talk about these issues, and I will get to this after this slide. But all of us has got a responsibility. It's your responsibility and the supervisor's responsibility to make this relationship work. But you need to have realistic expectations. You need to be organized, you need to be professional. You need to be open and honest with each other. You need to discuss your expectations at the beginning. I attended a workshop where we were asked to draw a metaphor for a relationship with a supervisor or a student. And guys, it's like totally different. Each of the delegates there had different views of what this journey is all about. For example, if you ask me, because I love horses, I would say it's like teaching my student how to ride a horse, and I'm the instructor. So that is the role of supervision. But somebody else might love nature and say it's like entering a cave. You know, you don't know where you're going, and then you see a little beetle with a light. I don't know what you call it in English, maybe you can help me. So that little insect is then a light for you in this dark tunnel to help you. That can be the supervisor as well. So it depends on where you're coming from and how you see the relationship. But remember, you need to talk about these things. Say what you are expecting from one another. Also give sufficient notice. Don't just pop up at the door. Okay. I have two specific students who they don't make appointments at all. They knock and they open the door. I can be busy, whatever. Can I see you? And if I say sorry, I can see the disappointment on their faces. They feel like I have rejected them. And it's not, it's just that time I really cannot give them my attention. So please make appointments, you know, and stick to those appointments. Draw up an agenda as well. Especially keep email tracks and everything to ensure that you have made appointments, what was discussed, etc., etc. What was the outcome of your discussion? What is the action plan? What should you do after this meeting? And then arrange a next meeting in advance as well. That is very important. And then if any problems persist and you really cannot deal with this relationship any longer, you need to speak to the academic leader and tell the person that you have issues. If that person cannot resolve it, it will be sent to Prof. MacArthur to look into, and then after that you can also approach our dean of our school. Right. But very importantly, you need to try and solve it yourself first. If you really think you cannot, then you need to take this route.